This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. And just across the room, right over there, my partner, Rob Barrett. How you doing, Rob? How's it going? Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I bet you're an author. I bet you want to write a book. Bet you've run into some roadblocks, and I'll bet that's why you're here. If you can't find yourself, hear yourself, or relate in some way to the authors and the stories that we have coming up tonight, I want you to call our studio right now, immediately, so we can straighten you out. Right, Rob? We can talk to them, put you on the right track. Listen up. I am sure you've heard writing is good for the soul, right? Everybody's heard that. And I can't tell you how many of our authors have discovered the therapeutic benefits of writing, you know? Like Nico McClellan. She wrote, I Found My Heart in Richland. Is that really where you found your heart, Nico?
I did, yeah. Well, I don't travel down there very often, but the man that the story is written about used to travel down there all the time for his job, and so that's where the title came from. Started out as a fantasy. The husband dies, and she is left raising two daughters, and, you know, the marriage was hard, and after 20 years didn't really know if she loved him or not, and finds another man to show her that love, you know, comes in different forms, and when you share and communicate and do things together, you know, it can blossom and be wonderful. So,
do you have a personal connection to this story?
Yes, I do. A lot of people that have read it, it seems to be like a personal diary to start out with, and then you can kind of slowly see the transition where it turns into just a novel. So it does. It is real personal.
So you lost your husband after 20 years of marriage?
No, I have not. But I, you know, struggled with the marriage when I wrote the book. We were going through a really hard time. So the book actually ended up being very therapeutic for me, and realized as I was writing it, the things I was writing about wanting to see in another man, I'd actually lost sight of seeing it in my own husband. And so it was very therapeutic, and it was very great to come back around, you know, and fall in love with my own husband again. But I haven't lost him. I just started the book out that way, thinking, what if I did? Would I ever want to get married again? Would I ever fall in love again? That sort of thing.
I mean, how many people get to that point in their lives and they just give up, get divorced, and that's it?
Right. And, you know, I just really didn't want to do that. I mean, we made a commitment, and I started to see how he does love me still. You know, we just kind of lose sight of that after 20 years. You fall into a bad routine, and, you know, you kind of take things for granted on both our parts, you know. And so I probably drove him crazy as much as he drove me crazy. And so it was just really nice to do that. And so things have been great. You know, I wrote it a year ago. And so, yeah, it's just kind of turned things around for us. He has not read the book, though.
What?
No, he doesn't know the title. He hasn't read the book. He doesn't really have an interest to. So
why wouldn't he want to read the book? He could get great insight into you, I would think.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think he has a real interest to, because I think I told him once that I didn't really want him to read it. You know, it'd kind of break his heart if he did. So, but he's not a real communicator, so if he read it and he was hurt or something, he wouldn't talk to me about it, so I wouldn't really know.
How are you getting other people to read it?
I meet people. I have to ride the city bus to and from work, so I've been meeting people on that. There's a lot of women that just sit and read, you know, on the bus, so if I start talking with one, I actually made up little business cards that I'm passing out that describe the book, and then a new book I'm writing. Hopefully that'll come out next year. So
I would think a lot of women could relate to this.
I think so. You know, a lot of my friends that have read it really love the storyline and really can see themselves struggling, you know, in their own marriage. I think we forget that other women go through the same things we're going through until you actually share it with somebody, the struggles that you have. So I've had a lot of good feedback about it.
How'd you end up with Page?
I had researched 3 different companies, and they actually had the better, you know, financial price on the book, and then they had the best covers. So I had a really good feeling when I had received the information in the mail from their company, just that was the one to go for. go with, and they've done really well. So I'm really glad that I did that.
And you're already working on another one.
I am, yes.
Nice, Nico. It sounds like this book not only gave you an outlet from your job as a graphics designer, but it might have saved your marriage. Now, Judith Suarez has a very different perspective of marriage, but she too found comfort when she took the time to write about her life in her book entitled Born on a Dirt Road. Now, I asked you if you were really born on a dirt road, and you said yes, and you survived.
Yeah, this is the story of my life. I'm getting a little bit older every day, and I was a young girl that got married at 20. And by 30, I found myself to be a battered woman in a very bad relationship. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And back then, they didn't talk about it much. You know, you were supposed to make it work. If you got married, you're supposed to make it work. So I was trying to make it work. And whatever I did, nothing helped. And I just don't want women to get stuck in a relationship and stay there, you know, and not realize that there's help out there if they'll just get out and find help. Move away to another city or, you know, find a job in another location. And get out of the circumstance. You don't have to stay there. No one should have to live like that.
What did you do?
I waited for him to go to work, and I packed up all of my things and moved out. It took me 4 hours to move out, and I moved to a different apartment. And as soon as I found out that he was going to continue to harass me, even though I had filed for divorce, he would continue to harass me. He'd call me at 3 in the morning and wake me up, you know, just to tell me that he had a 20-year-old girlfriend, and I was 30, but she was 20. Well, I didn't need to hear that at 3 in the morning. I had to go to work. So he continued to harass me until I moved out of state. And I moved out of state and found a job in Florida. I moved from Atlanta post office to the Tampa post office and worked in Tampa for years.
Did you have children?
That worked out better for me. Yes, we had a daughter. Yeah, that made it even harder because she loved her dad very much. She still does to this day. She's closer to him than she is to me. But now that I'm retired, I want to go to the local shelter here and let the girls read my book and let them know that, you know, they can change. They don't have to stay in that position. There's no one should be battered around like that. You know, it's just terrible. And it kills your self-esteem. You do not have any self-esteem.
You know, you're lucky, Judith, because some women are beaten down to the point where they don't even know how to get out from under themselves. They think that, you know, that they deserve the abuse that they get.
Yeah, because the men will tell you, you deserve this. You're ugly. You know, you're stupid. You're ugly. You're stupid. You'll never find another man. If I leave you, you'll die alone. And you start to believe all those things. But, you know, you just have to, it's hard to pull yourself up because you have to get out and get away from that. To understand oppression, it's necessary that you be oppressed. And no one can understand abuse unless they've been abused, you know. And people will say, well, why didn't you just leave? But it's not that easy. You can, you know, issue a warrant to his arrest. But if I did that, then who's going to get him out of jail? Who's going to pay the money to bond him out of jail? And if you don't bond him out of jail, he's going to lose his job. And then he will be no help to me at all if he has no job. So it's not as easy, especially when you have no money and nowhere to go. It's not as easy as they say, just leave.
No, and who better to help women in a situation similar to yours, Judith, than someone who feels their pain? I wish you the best of luck. I really do. Next up, if you like history and you're interested in the South and what was really going on when masters had slaves, you might want to check out Secrets of Their Shadowed Hearts. Kimberly Pendarvis really did her homework on this one, and I think as a writer, talking to other writers, she has some very interesting things to share. So let's start with the secrets, Kimberly.
This is based on just plantation life, although it's centered around plantation life. in which a master falls in love with one of his slaves. A couple of things inspired me to write it. You can learn a lot from history, especially when you delve into a time that took place 100 years ago or more, which is the setting for my book. It takes place in 1820, which is almost 2 centuries ago. That's intriguing because when you look at things in American literature, you will find that this country has undergone a ton of transformations, and almost every piece on the timeline is fascinating, no matter which point you choose. I chose Southern history because for people to tend to remember it more. I also live in Alabama. Southern life and the current plight of my situation prompted me to help people to understand things better.
People don't realize the North and the South are very different.
Right, and a lot of people from the South, they tend to be a little closed-minded, and this is just interpretations from people who come from the North. I cannot personally speak because I have not traveled too far up in the country. But I have encountered people who come from the North and they come to the South, and they do speak on what you're saying, things being different.
But it's also interesting, it used to be like it was big news when you found out that, Thomas Jefferson slept with his slaves, with Sally Hemings. I mean, they had children.
Right.
And,
right.
As time has gone on, you realize this happened all the time. And
right.
and people
it does.
People really fell in love. People, not everybody considered slaves something less than human.
That is correct.
And
you don't find that mentioned much.
So this is a love story?
It is. It's something, like I said, and to capitalize on what you said, it's something that happened often, but is not mentioned at all. You will find that there's much romance. In fact, it centers around that, the romance aspect. And you're seeing things from a different perspective, as opposed to what you would commonly see in a slave book. Because when you think that time frame, the slavery lasted from 1400 to 1800. When you think of that time frame, you think slavery. And typically what you will see in slavery books, you will see the perspective from the slave's perspective. But however, you never really see anything from the master. He's just looked at as some mean, malicious person. But it was not always the case. My characters actually play the part of that, as far as being brutal and merciless. However, there are some things to change, things that happen that invoke change, which causes the direction to turn.
This sounds like something you've thought about and studied about,
Well, I've written works in the past. I have done many things, like I said, particularly dealing with history. But what prompted me to write this book, I originally had a dream about it. I had a dream about a guy, a man, and a white male and a black female, and there was an underlying story there. And as it made me excited. I was excited to try to put something together, and the more I wrote on it, the more I just fell in love with the topic. And so it really initially began with a vision. And
now it's come to fruition.
That is correct.
So now what?
I am definitely promoting my book through book signings, through social media, and there is also a sequel that has already been completed. The title of it is Secrets of Their Shadowed Souls, The Road to Warrior. And in that book, you will get more personal with the main characters because it is written in the first person view as opposed to the Secrets of Their Shadowed Heart is written in third person. So in the sequel, you will get more personal with the characters. So it's definitely a lot of promotion.
All right, Kimberly, looking forward to it. And I just want to mention real quick that Kimberly started writing this book 10 years ago. And like the other two authors we've heard from so far tonight, she started writing to help her deal with a very difficult time she was going through. So again, another example of using writing as a kind of therapy. We got to take a quick break, but we are coming right back, as we always do, right after these words. So don't go anywhere.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Thanks for coming back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, along with my engineer, Rob Barrett. Don't you hate it, Rob, when somebody starts writing things about where you grew up, a beloved place where you grew up, and you're like, that didn't happen there. I don't know what these people are talking about. Well, that's kind of how our next author feels. Every time Larry Bucaria hears about the mob and all the murders in Brooklyn, it makes him crazy. His memories are completely different from the way the borough is often portrayed in books, movies, TV, but that's only part of the story he tells in his book entitled The Eutectic. Give us a quick definition of eutectic, will you?
Well, it means in any kind of an alloy, let's say a metal alloy, the first thing to melt is the eutectic. And the symbolism here is that in the melting pot theory, one person is very forgiving of the other people's prejudices, and that's where the eutectic comes in. It's a cosmopolitan type of neighborhood, different families, German families, Irish families, a Jewish family, an Italian family, and they were all struggling, especially in the 30s, to get out of the Great Depression, for one thing. And religion is a major cause, the Catholics and the Protestants. And this one person who's a hero in the book, Fletcher Flannery, he is the eutectic. He's the one who sees the other person's problems, and he's very forgiving. And that's basically the nature of it. It's almost a defense mechanism on my part. I'm so sick of people portraying Brooklyn as the ultimate den of iniquity where everything is terrible. And that's not, in the 1930s, at least in the section I was brought up, in the Bushwick section, it was a very benign neighborhood. It's a very nice neighborhood. But it delves into the psyches of different people, especially the immigrants, and how a lot of them hate each other. And they kind of grow to work together, thanks to Fletcher Flannery. And throughout the book, there's a love story. He becomes engaged to his mother's friend, a beautiful girl named Mary, but he doesn't really love her. Well, he's not in love with her, let me put it that way. And he's in love with a German Lutheran girl, a young girl named Ursula, and that's continued to the whole story. And I had written this, at least parts of it, over the years. And finally, when I had some time, it coalesced, and I did put it together. And I think it's interesting.
So the eutectic, which is the title of your book, kind of follows the whole melting pot thing that was happening in America at the time.
Especially in World War II in the service, when people of different origins got together, they melted into one amalgam. Now, the thing that began that in my story is Fletcher Flannery. He's the one that suddenly sees the good in other people's predicaments, even like different religions, things like that. He's very forgiving. He is the eutectic. He's the one that prompts the melting pot theory.
Now, you've been writing your whole life, but this is the first book you've ever had published.
That's correct.
Why'd you go with Page?
they seem to be very attractive, and I'm very glad I did. They were very honest people. They did exactly what they said, and I think they did a beautiful job on it. When I finally looked at the published cover, I was amazed. They just did a very nice job. They're very easy people to deal with, and I don't think I could have found a better place. I have 3 other books, too, behind, so
You have
let's see what happens.
You have 3 other books that you're going to publish now?
You bet.
Good for you. Do people in Brooklyn know that you're writing books?
No, well, we will be doing book signings, yes. But not in Brooklyn. I moved out of Brooklyn 50 years ago.
Where do you live now?
In Framingham, Massachusetts.
That's way out of Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah. And they still say, you New Yorker. I keep getting that when they hear me speak.
Well, you can educate people about Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. It's a wonderful borough. It does get a bad rap, so...
Sure it does. But I'm so tired of The Godfather with you're chopping the horse's head off and throwing it in the guy's bed. I don't remember seeing many horses without heads. And we did have drugs, but you got them at the drugstore.
Well, that was then.
It was a simple life, but it was a typical American life. And at the turn of the century, you must remember, Brooklyn was the 3rd largest city in the country.
And today, if Brooklyn were an independent city and not one of the 5 boroughs, it would be America's 4th largest city. Did you know that? Yeah. Turns out Larry's been writing his whole life, and now he's just finally found the time to put his stuff out there. Good job. Murphy McCrae has had some experiences you may find hard to believe, but when you read about them, you might become a believer after all. His book is entitled Face-to-Face Encounters. Now, Murphy, you tell me that you have come face-to-face, literally, with real live angels.
I want to know God. So I began to pray. Matter of fact, I set my clock, and I began to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to pray, to seek the Lord, because I want to know him. And after doing this, that's when the angels of God began to appear as I prayed. It was like I'm praying, and a light will like that from heaven and just come down, and disappear. You
are saying that angels actually appeared to you?
Yes, they actually appeared in person. Yes, in person. I've seen them like looking in your face. Yes. As a matter of fact, when I saw the 16 that appeared to me, when I was praying on the hood of my truck, when they appeared, it's like it was a cloud, more like a monument laid out with a man's hand in midair. And it was approximately, I guess, 300 yards from where I was, praying on the truck. And this was like early in the morning. It was dark, okay, like 5 a.m. in the morning. And as I was laying there praying, at the beginning, there was nothing there. The stars were shining. And I looked, and suddenly there was like a monument, like a cloud. And it came down like a kid's sliding board to a point. And I said I was going to go in the house and get a camera and get a picture, because I'd never seen anything like that, in midair. And while I was thinking about it, I saw what come out of it, what I thought was an airplane, because I was not thinking live angels. And when it came out, and when it got clear, 2 more came out, and they kept coming. I said, my God, and it was coming down towards where I was laying on my truck praying. It was going towards me. And so I wondered, where is all these airplanes going at 5 o'clock in the morning? And as it got a little closer, I saw pure gold breastplates. And I said, my God, living angels. And as they came on down, they came out in a half moon, and the Spirit said, count them. I counted them in twos. It was 16 live, living, visible angels. I'm looking at them with my eyeballs. And I'm talking about, this happened. This happened. And as they came on them, they came out in a half moon. And when they came on a half moon, when they got down to where I was at, the ones in the center dropped back and made a W. And I could hear God says, worship so loud, looked like it went through my body. And this is what the church doesn't do as they should, is worship God.
When did you start having these encounters?
Back in the 80s.
What made you start writing about them now?
Because after God showed me the angels, he told me to write it and publish it, because there was not another book out there like that.
Okay.
He told me to write it.
All right, Murphy. you certainly have a built-in audience right in your own religious community. And if you say God told you to write this book, and other authors have, I am not going to be the one to doubt that. All right, we're going to go out to Fort Benton, Montana, and meet Joseph Corbine. He's already self-published a couple of books, and they're all about the state they call Big Sky. Hey, Joseph, what's the story with Treasure Territory?
It's about a young cowhand. He's really a boy. He thinks he's in trouble over a girl, but he isn't. And he kind of wanders off and accidentally finds riches, which he has a really tough time keeping hold of. He has to brush with outlaws and wildfires, the elements. Commonly in Montana, we figure the weather changes every 5 minutes. You never know what's around the next corner. He's getting old enough. He wants to be on his own. His mother is remarried a farmer, and he likes to be a cowhand. He likes to rope and ride, and there's constantly conflict there. And of course, they're scared to death when he finds the gold. Did he rob somebody, or is this going to bring robbers down on them? And of course, it does in a way. But he picks his way through all these adventures, and he finally realizes that gold isn't the treasure, it's his girlfriend, Sally.
Oh, that's nice. So true love wins out in the end. Is this based on anybody you know by any chance?
I put a few references in there from Montana history, but, this is entirely fiction.
Now, when you first hooked up with Page, you were thinking of publishing another book, right?
But then they decided they wanted to publish that one, so that was the ball, and we ran with it. So I've had 5, 6 self-published, and Page picked that up and wanted to make a second printing with it. So after we edited it, that's what we did.
All right, Joseph. A good read about a young man trying to find his way. 1 down, 5 to go. All right, that, I think, is, all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for dropping by. I hope you've gotten a little encouragement here tonight, and if not tonight, maybe next time. Be here, same time, same place, 710 WOR for the next Page Publishing Book Club. And in the meantime, think about your life. Think about your experiences. Think about what you want or feel the need to say. And then start writing.